Russia now demands the U.S. return Alaska and California and other territories to Russian control. It's calling for the return of its historic settlements in Alaska and California and some areas of Hawaii, as we'll see from the map, demanding the U.S. hand over the former settlements as Russia continues displaying signs of increasing bullishness. A member of Putin's parliament in Moscow outlined the plan for reclaiming the settlements in Alaska and California, claiming they will be due after demilitarization of Ukraine. Alaska and Fort Ross in California were part of the Russian Empire in the 18th and 19th centuries before they were sold to the United States. And we'll notice that Alaska, basically the territory, is about half the area of the continental United States. Now, the Duma member Oleg Matveyev appeared on Russian state news on Sunday. He outlined a series of demands for both Washington and Kiev. It comes as Russian and Ukrainian officials meet for another round of peace talks yesterday. And meanwhile, he says we should be thinking about reparations from the damage that was caused by sanctions, because that too costs money. He says the return of all Russian properties, those of the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, and current Russia, which has been seized in the United States, and so on, he said. Solovyov asked if the lawmaker specifically meant Alaska and the former Russian settlement of Fort Ross, California. And Matveyev said, that was my next point, as well as Antarctica. We discovered it, so it belongs to us, he said. And so we know that from what the explorers of Antarctica told us, there's so much coal there they can supply the world for the next 100 years, 300 years. So there's, of course, Antarctica is a very energy-rich source. Now, the first colony, Russian colony on Alaska, was founded in 1784, named Three Saints Bay. There began the Russian-American Company, a trading monopoly chartered by Tsar Philip Paul I in 1799, which drove the empire's expansion in North America. Alaska was sold to the United States in 1869 during Andrew Jackson's presidency for $7.2 million, which would be approximately $144.4 million of today. Million. The Russian-American Company built Fort Ross, less than 3 hours outside of modern-day San Francisco, in 1812. The settlement was sold into private hands in 1841. In addition, going back to the areas, U.S. acquired Alaska from Russian Empire October 19, 1867, through a treaty ratified by the U.S. Senate. Russia established a presence in North America during the first half of the 18th century, but few Russians ever settled in Alaska. In the aftermath of the Crimean War, Emperor Alexander II of Russia began exploring the possibility of selling Alaska to pay off the debts of the country, which would be difficult to defend in any future war from being conquered by his main rival, Britain. So following the end of the American Civil War, former U.S. Secretary of State William Seward entered into negotiations with then Russian Minister Edward D. Stockel and agreed on the sale. The purchase added 586,412 square miles of new territory to the U.S. for the cost of $7.2 million. Today's about $144 equivalent million. But on the 150th anniversary celebration, some Russian nationalists who see the move as a mistake were still angry. History enthusiast Vladimir Kolichev wrote a popular poem to Alexander II, which featured the words, "Along with Alaska, you sold out your Russian people," he said. Now, a niche military magazine said, "The Alaska we've lost." The Alaska Back to Russia was the title of a White House petition that earned more than 42,000 signatures and was widely covered in Russian media before being removed. Andrei Znamensky, history professor at University of Memphis, said the calls were not surprising. He said back in 2017, a few years ago, it's a very convenient episode for nationalists who want Russia to expand, to exploit. He said it fits into the national rhetoric of, look how the Americans have treated us, he said. Now, the frustration had been growing for some time and left some questions whether the Kremlin could plan to annex the region as it did Crimea in 2014, but Putin joked it was not worth the hassle. The question and answer event, the 68-year-old was asked in 2014, are there any plans to annex Alaska to Russia? We would be very happy about that. Putin responded with a smile, what would you need Alaska for? We are a northern country. 70% of our territory is in the north and far north. And Putin added that it's also quite cold in Alaska. But he may still want to create a link between Russia and the former territory of Alaska. In 2008, Putin approved a plan to build a railway through the Bering Strait area as a part of the development plan to run until 2030. The thing is, the Bering Strait, okay, that's a huge area, and it's full of volcanic islands. And there are those that say there is a supervolcano under those volcanic islands of the Aleutian Islands. Now, the more than 60-mile tunnel would run under the Bering Strait between Chukotka in the Russian Far East and Alaska. The idea of joining up the Far East and the far north of U.S. has been proposed numerous times since the end of the 19th century. The plans to cover the Bering Strait, which is just 55 meters deep, that's about 150 feet deep, and it's pretty shallow. It's untroubled by tides or swift currents, have included projects for both bridge and tunnel. The latter option is thought to be the more practical one, as the strait lies within the Arctic Circle, where any steel structure would be particularly vulnerable to freezing and temperatures. In the 60s, a Chinese-American structural engineer, Tung Yen Li, drew up detailed plans for an intercontinental peace bridge, so it would run basically throughout the United States, U.S.-Canada border, and in the western United States through Alaska, through the Bering Strait, into eastern Russia, all the way down to China. So Fyodor Solovyov, founder of the Interbering, a private company dedicated to lobbying for the link, said there was a significant body of interest, both Russia and America, in building a Bering Strait link. He said the other big benefit would be the aspect of international cooperation and future dependence of the participating countries, that is, US, Canada, Russia, and China. Ensuring, he said, the smooth transit of rail traffic, customs control, security on all parts of the railroad, bridges, and tunnels, and other regular cooperations would significantly improve the chances of peace. However, the proposal came under scrutiny. Zhao Jiang, professor at Beijing in China, Zhao Tong University School of Economics and Management, said the idea was essentially meaningless. And he said back in 2014, for transporting passengers, why not go by air? Of course. Now, and for cargo, it would be more expensive than shipping by sea. And a rail line that crossed other countries involves sovereign rights and environmental protection, so the whole thing is nearly impossible, he said. But advocates for Bering Strait Link claim it could carry 8% of the world's cargo trade and open up deserted areas for development. And so for cost estimates for the Bering Strait Link have placed a total at about hundreds of billions of dollars. The bulk of the cost would be incurred building infrastructure to reach either end of the crossing. On the Russian side, 1,800 miles of the new rail lines would be needed, while in the Alaska project would require 750 miles more. So complicating the logistic mix, Russian and American railways use different track gauges, and for now that just remains an idea. This is on Express UK and News Punch, and please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.